from beginning to end, Cody had me. I thought it was a great sit down. I'm glad that there was a sit down and they did it in front of the WWE universe because you were able to get those reactions. So let me hear more of your thoughts, Bully.
Once again, 9 out of 10. Really liked it. Liked the foreshadowing of handing the championship to Mom because I can't hand it to Dad. And Michael Cole at WrestleMania 40, you're going to be able to say that Cody Rhodes finished the story. But he didn't say guarantee. But it sounds like they're going to pull the trigger because of Cody's confidence. But there was one thing. Much like Cody overplayed the smack, Cody underplayed the emotion last night. Now, Bully, how the hell can you say that Cody Rhodes underplayed emotion? Dave, did Cody Rhodes get choked up when he started talking about Teal and started talking about his dad and his mother and Brandy?
Yes.
Did he cry?
It sounded like he cried. It did. Yes.
It sounded like he cried. It looked like he cried. If you're going to cry, cry. Crying brings fans in closer. I'm so welled up with emotion. I'm a man. And I'm going to break down in tears on national television because of what it's going to mean to me to win that championship. I'm not talking about bawling like a baby. I'm talking about tears in your eyes of emotion. Tommy would have cried. Mark Henry would have cried. I'm not taking anything away from Cody. I'm just saying immerse yourself in the emotion of the moment. If Cody would have cried last night, he would have gotten a standing ovation because people can relate to it.
Those tears are going to come when he wins that championship. What I loved about last night, and I'm going to go back to one of my all-time favorite A&E bios, and it was the one on the NWO. And right at the end of that A&E bio, they're interviewing Eric Bischoff. And Eric Bischoff, and I'm sure you've seen that. I'm sure you've seen this bio. Eric Bischoff is talking about a girl at one of the meet and greets that he was at, talking about how Eric Bischoff was a big influence on her childhood and her life because her dad had a lot of issues. Her dad had a lot of problems. He had a problem with alcohol. But the one thing he did do is every Monday night they would sit and they would watch Nitro. And that was daddy-daughter time. It was sitting and watching Nitro. So no matter what was going on with her father at the time, he always took time to sit down and watch Nitro with his daughter. And he talks about an email he sent to Eric. She sent to Eric Bischoff about, like, my father's gone and my mother's gone. Would you walk me down the aisle? And Eric Bischoff is telling this story. And as he's telling this story, he's fighting back the tears. He's not crying. He's trying to tell the story. And as he's telling the story, Bully, he's fighting back tears. And you hear his voice kind of quiver a little bit as he's telling the story. To me, that is so real. And I felt that when I was listening to Cody last night. As Cody's talking about his sister, talking about his mother, talking about his wife, Brandy. He's telling this, and he's talking to Michael Cole. And as he's talking, he's fighting back to tears. And for me, that just grabbed me. Because that's how I talk. When when I get emotional, Bully, I don't just break down and start crying. I know when I talk to my wife and I get emotional, I'm trying to talk and I'm trying to get a message across. And if I'm getting emotional, I'm kind of fighting back the tears in order to get my message across. I felt like that's what Cody was doing last night. Like he's trying to get his message across because he's in an arena full of people and he's having a conversation with Michael Cole, and he's trying to fight the emotions as he's talking. To me, that's real. That hit real to me last night, and that grabbed me more than if he would have just broke down crying. Again, that's going to happen. That breakdown will happen. I think that breakdown's going to happen when he achieves his goal and finishes the story. So I actually loved the way that was presented last night on Raw.
Fair enough. I'd be more than happy to agree with you if any tears were actually fought back. When you fight back tears, at least a tear or two comes out. Your eyes get glassy because you well up. Your eyes might get a little red. That's fighting back tears. I did not see that last night. I felt like maybe Cody got choked up. I'm telling you, Dave, and if you don't believe me, you can ask Tommy, because Tommy is excellent at emotion, because Tommy gets genuinely emotional in a wrestling ring. When Cody said, I can't hand the championship to my dad, but I can hand it to Michelle Rubio. If in that moment, even one tear came out of his eye and he had to wipe it away and he had to stop and look away for a moment, those fans would have willed him on with a standing ovation. It's a tiny little thing that would have meant the world, because the fans would have realized that Cody is crying and they would have been the ones to get him through it. I wish we could go back in time and do that segment all over again and insert the tears. You'd see what I'm talking about.
9 out of 10 for you, Bully?
Yeah, I mean, listen, right off the bat, I said last night was a 9 out of 10. I loved it. But it's those little things, like what I talked about with the smack, and I'm talking about with the tears, that send segments over the top where they become memorable forever. I'm telling you, Dave, Dave, when me and Tommy got into it in the middle of the ring in Vegas, and I threw hot coffee in his face because I really didn't give a shit about what he had to say. Did you try to get involved and try to separate us?
I did.
What did I do to you?
You knocked me on my ass.
And what did you hear from the crowd?
There was a gasp from the crowd.
A gasp. Because all of a sudden, the two guys who were on this show for the past 7 years together had a real issue. And if it wasn't for the fact that you were my friend and I liked you and I know that you could never defend yourself against me, I would have caved your fucking face in for getting involved in my business. And when I say cave your face in, that's what I mean. Cave it in. But when you got knocked on your ass, there was a gasp in that crowd. If Cody would have cried, those people would have given him a standing ovation to will him on. There would have been another Cody chant. If Michael Cole would have went over and just put his hand on Cody's shoulder like, you can get through this. My God, what a segment it would have been. It would have been an 11 out of 10. I gave it a 9 out of 10. It's just a little thing. And if you go back in time, you'll see the real greats are able to achieve it. That's it.
Yeah, I
I'm not taking away from anything. I'm not telling you you're wrong. because that's the way it emotionally resonated with you. Your emotional taste buds loved everything it saw last night. My emotional taste buds loved almost everything it saw
Yeah,
last
and
night.
yeah, it definitely resonated with me, but I understand what you're saying as well, Bully. Let's get into the almost guarantee, because you always say once you make that guarantee, then as a baby face you have to win. Is this
Especially Cody,
yes?
considering last year, what he's gone through, what he's going through. If he would have said, Michael Cole, I guarantee you that we are going to finish the story at WrestleMania, well then, that's it.
He didn't make that guarantee. Came close, but didn't make the guarantee. What did you think of? Like we talked about the emotion. Let's talk about what he actually said. Again, he brings up, and this has been happening, throughout. It happened with CM Punk, and it's definitely happened with Cody. The references to AEW. He's talking about that sledgehammer to the throne. That happened at AEW Double or Nothing. How do you feel about those references to the past where there was animosity towards Triple H and the WWE?
I love everything that is real. Whenever we can bring up the past or tip our hat to the past, anything like that. So, Cody, Michael Cole says, how can you trust Seth? And Cody says, people change. If you remember a couple of months ago, that was the soapbox that Mark Henry got on when we were talking about CM Punk. People change. I'm like, Mark, how can you refer to WWE as home if this is the home, that drove you out 10 years ago? Mark's whole thing was people change. And Mark made a very good argument for how Punk could have changed. The WWE could have changed. So Michael Cole says, Cody, how can you trust that? Well, people change. And he explained how people have changed. However, I will never forget the look that Triple H gave Cody Rhodes in the locker room about 6 to 8 months ago when Cody basically said, thanks for your advice, but I'll handle this on my own. I'm paraphrasing here.
Yeah, yeah.
And when Cody walked away, Triple H just looked at him like, kid, I never forgot about that throne thing.
He said it with his eyes.
Correct. Whether or not that ever comes into play, who knows? But to me, if they were to ever use Triple H in some way, because at the end of the day, what we're going to most likely get night 2 is, I keep using Star Wars as the reference because I understand it better. We're going to get the Empire versus the Rebels, the bloodline being the Empire and Cody being Luke with his band of rebels. But I think a more modern day thing is the Avengers and whoever the Avengers fight against, Andre or Paul, or probably no, whatever that is. Who are the bad guys? Is that Thanos versus the Avengers?
The douchebags?
You're right. Yeah, Thanos. Thanos versus the Avengers. I know Cody's a mark for that kind of stuff. So I think we're going to get a version of that at the end with Rock being Thanos. I think this is what it's coming to. Because I got to tell you, knowing the stipulation and the repercussions of night 1 leading into night 2, I want Roman and Rock to go over night 1. I have no desire. And Dave, you know how much of a traditionalist I am. Remember, it was the untraditional style of match that Okada and Omega had that brought me to the opinion of this is not the greatest match I've ever seen, like you said. I think the Universal Championship should be, won and lost in the middle of the ring based on your professional wrestling ability, yada, yada. Not in this one. Give me everything. I want the shit to hit the fan. I want bells, whistles, run-ins, tables, ladders, chairs, lions, tigers, and bears. Oh, my.
But Bully, I'm I can see both sides, but I completely understand where you're coming from with this because it plays into the story. Here's what makes this story so beautiful. And we kind of just really just hinted at some of those things. You threw out Triple H. Triple H could side with Cody because The Rock saying, hey, I'm the boss, and anybody working for the WWE, I'm their boss, meaning that he's Triple H's boss. So I could see Triple H siding with Cody because of this, but then I could see Triple H going against Cody because of what you just said about, hey, the sledgehammer to the throne. I didn't forget about that. You know, you say people change. You forgot about it. I didn't forget about that. That's you. That's me. Then you talked about those band of rebels. Well, who are those band of rebels? Seth Rollins and Jey Uso, right? They would be in Cody's corner because both Jey Uso and Seth Rollins has been screwed by the bloodline. But I could easily see Seth Rollins screwing Cody. Michael Cole laid it out. Hey, Seth Rollins beat Roman. He never got his rematch. He never got an opportunity to win that championship. And who is the guy that beat Seth Rollins 3 matches in a row? It was Cody Rhodes. So I could see Seth Rollins. I could see even Jey Uso turning on Cody. Jey Uso is a part of the bloodline. Jey Uso, who's the one guy that Drew McIntyre never trusted Jey Uso. Why? Because the bloodline and Jey Uso screwed over Drew McIntyre. And Cody even alluded it into that conversation with Cole that I even, tagged with Jey Uso, meaning, hey, at one point, this guy was the enemy. Who's to say, boy, this guy's not the enemy again?
Here's what I love about all the scenarios that you brought up and the way this storyline has been laid out since they got back on track. Because make no mistake, this story went off the rails for 2 weeks. 2 weeks it went off the rails and they got it back on track. Anybody tries to tell you any different is full of shit. You know how we get callers here on the show sometimes, Dave, who makes suggestions and they'll ask us what I think. And basically you got to kind of agree with the suggestion because it's pro wrestling and anything can really happen. You can take a horrible idea and still book it and make it happen. That doesn't mean it's going to be good. In these scenarios we're coming up with on the show with night 1 and night 2 and this guy turning or this guy, never forgetting what happened or this run in, blah, blah. They're all legitimate scenarios. What's to say that The Rock does not get in Jey Uso's head and says, just remember where you come from in this family. And remember the repercussions from your father, Rikishi, if you don't do the right thing. Or reverse that with Jimmy Uso. It would all make sense. Imagine Rocky and Roman going to Jey and sitting Jey down and saying, you need to do the right thing for your family. And Jey going, I can't do that. You guys are wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. And then Rikishi walks into the shot. My son, you do what the family tells you. I'm spitballing here.
Yeah, or
now all of a sudden Dad is involved and Dad is telling Jey, you got to do the right thing by your family. We stick together. If there's one family in the world of professional wrestling who sticks together, it is the Inoue family and that Samoan dynasty and bloodline. They always have. And I thought it was super impressive to see that family tree laid out at the press conference.
Yeah, and Bully, who's to tell you that that this whole thing hasn't been a ruse with Jey Uso since day one? This is a way to infiltrate Monday Night Raw and the quote unquote rebels. To infiltrate this to see what's going to actually happen and play out at WrestleMania 40. Or you could flip it. And again, The Rock not throwing up that number 1, throwing up that pistol or that L sign. He's got his thumb out. Everybody's talking about this now, by the way. Everybody's circling, The Rock's hand gestures each and every time he does, the acknowledge me with the rest of the bloodline. It's different.
I'm wondering how long The Rock is going to want to lean in to this heel persona, Hollywood heel Rock. I think it has tremendous legs. But I also don't know how The Rock feels about being so hated, since when he returned, I believe he thought he was going to be super embraced as The Rock. Outside of the WWE, Rock has had a couple of things go on that haven't exactly gone the right way. And in no way, shape, or form do I mean that in a demeaning or negative way. A couple of business ventures, whether it was a movie or a football, that it didn't pan out the way he wanted to. And shit like that goes on in business all the time. Hey, this movie didn't do as well as we thought it would. The XFL didn't do it as well as we thought. So he's had a couple of hiccups along the way. And I don't think that The Rock is used to hiccups, because he had a stretch there where everything was going his way. So does he lean into the heel role and keep moving along with it, which I think would be great, and be Mr. McMahon to the umpteenth degree? Or does Rock say, I don't want to be hated anymore. It's not good for my brand. And he's the guy that ultimately turns on Roman to help Cody win. Either way, very reasonable and very fathomable outcomes. Yes or no?
Yeah.
This is why you have to watch.
Yeah, this is the beauty of the story, because anything can happen here. I mean, Bully, could Seth Rollins turn on Cody night number one? Yes. Could The Rock turn on Roman Reigns night number 2 of WrestleMania?
Yes.
Anything can happen there. Anything can happen.
Rock could, the unveiling when this is all over is, Cody, I had to go so undercover. Remember in Beverly Hills Cop, I got to go deep undercover. I'm deep now, but I got to go deep, deep undercover. Axel Foley. Rock can turn around and say, Cody, I had to go so far undercover on this one to make sure that my family didn't screw you over, that not even you knew about it.
Yeah, I mean, think about what you just said. It makes perfect sense. And I'll throw something else out there, Bully, that you've said before. Eventually, Jey Uso is going to be back with the bloodline, don't you think? I mean, it just doesn't feel right that Jey Uso is fractured from the bloodline. I feel like Jey Uso is going to get back with his family and be a part of this bloodline. Maybe that happens in Philadelphia at WrestleMania 40.
A couple of months, not months ago, maybe 2 months ago. Yeah, a couple months ago, I said that I would love to see the Usos back together. Now, Jey is doing a phenomenal job of getting over on his Dave, as we know, very difficult to be in an established tag team and then one guy breaks away to become a major star. I don't know if I can attach major star to Jey Uso yet, but he is really, really on his way. He's super over. Just watch the live audience. His merch is selling like crazy. I mean, so far, so good with Jey Uso. But are you going to ever buy into Jey as a viable singles star? And if so, at what level? Semi-main?
Yeah, I don't think you're ever going to see, at least right now, Jey Uso in the main event picture wrestling for a world championship right now.
And could you see the Samoan family having the collective mindset of whether you agree or disagree with the decisions being made at the top, a la Rock and Roman? You're still a part of this family. You're still a part of this dynasty and this bloodline, and you would do what's right for family first.
Or Bully, because you said he's right there, this could be the story that brings him over the top and makes him a single superstar. I'm not ruling that out either, because that's definitely a possibility. Because outside of Cody Rhodes, nobody was more over with that crowd last night in Houston than Jey Uso. So I could see Jey Uso taking that leap. That, again, another character in the story that we could see be pushed up to that main event level. It's possible. That's what makes this story so beautiful. All the pieces involved, their characters can change in an instant, including The Rock.
This is so intriguing to me. Like, I'm having fun with this. I don't even want to make predictions. I don't care about predictions, because making predictions on this one is to me, it's no point, because it would be so easy for me to say, oh, I think this is going to happen, and then I think this is going to happen, and then come back and say, well, here's my counterpoint to each one of the points I just made.
Yeah.
I think the business is in Rock and Roman going over night one because of the big implication night two. You don't want to dangle a bloodline rules match, which is basically a glorified no DQ, anything goes match. You don't want to dangle that in front of people just to take it away and go, okay, we're just having a regular World Heavyweight Championship match. Because you want to see everybody get involved. Now, I know the stipulation for night two is the bloodline would not be allowed at ringside, which means when the bell rings, they're not allowed at ringside. But during the match, you could always do run-ins and distract the ref and bump the ref and stuff like that.
And that plays into the story too, Bully, because you're like, are you going to go into night number two saying, all right, Cody, because he lost, don't forget, he lost because of outside interference, in LA last year. All right, now finally we can have a one-on-one match with Cody and Roman where there's not going to be any outside interference, and then something happens that changes. And that plays into the story that's being told as well when you look back to what happened at WrestleMania 39.
And here's another thing that I forgot to bring up that I heard last night. I actually didn't hear it. I kind of read between the lines, and I've been doing it recently. Other than the smack, what's the worst thing Cody has done or said to The Rock?
The smack is by far the biggest thing. Like, there's really the one thing is, you go back to the press conference in Vegas. He talked about how his grandfather, and he pointed at Roman, and your grandfather pointing at The Rock, would be embarrassed by that. Was probably the closest thing to the smack.
So there's really nothing horrible that Cody has ever said or done. As a matter of fact, we've heard him put The Rock over. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
We've heard Cody still be respectful towards The Rock, of what The Rock used to be and what he could mean to the WWE Universe in the future.
As early as last night on Monday Night Raw with that sit-down with Michael Cole.
So what does Cody see in The Rock? He still sees good in The Rock. What movie is Cody a huge fan of? Star Wars. And what did Luke see in his father, Darth Vader? Good. I know there is good in you, Father. So maybe Cody is trying to give The Rock the benefit of the doubt.
He was ready to give The Rock the main event at WrestleMania. Even though he won the Royal Rumble, he was handing over the main event of WrestleMania 40 over to The Rock.